Hey Stoic warrior, look around you. We live in a world where everyone is trying to prove something. Prove they're right, prove they're worthy, prove they matter. People explain, over-explain, and sometimes even beg just to be seen. But a Stoic doesn't do that. A Stoic doesn't beg for attention. A Stoic doesn't chase validation. A Stoic doesn't explain himself to the world because he knows one truth. Silence is strength. The great Stoics Marcus Aurelius Epictetus mastered the power of silence, not because they didn't care, but because they understood something deeper. Epictetus once said, "The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have." When you chase someone's attention or beg for their understanding, you're handing over control. You're saying my peace depends on how you respond. That's not peace, that's prison. Real strength is this: when someone disrespects you, you walk away without a word. Not out of pride, but out of dignity.
Because true dignity doesn't scream, it doesn't chase, it doesn't explain, it detaches quietly, powerfully. So today we're diving into the kind of silence that builds power, not weakness. The kind of silence that makes people wonder what changed. The kind of silence that allows your absence to speak louder than any message you could send. We're going to break down 6 powerful truths, 6 reasons why silence is the Stoic superpower. If you've ever felt drained from overgiving, if you've been misunderstood, if you've ever chased someone who walked away, this is your moment to shift. Engagement, call to action. Let this message be the reminder you didn't even know you needed. Before we dive into point number 1, do me one small favor. Like this video if it already resonates with you. Drop your affirmations and thoughts in the comments as we go. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to Stoicism Breath for more timeless growth content. Most importantly, don't skip any part of this video, because one single idea, one truth might just change the way you carry yourself forever. And I want you to start by writing this affirmation in the comments right now. My silence is my power. Silence is not about ego, it's about clarity. It's that quiet inner voice saying, I saw how you treated me. I felt what you did, but I value myself too much to explain it to you. Because if they cared, they would ask. If they respected you, they would reach out. If they were truly emotionally mature, they wouldn't need a long paragraph to understand your worth. So you stay silent. And in that silence, you reclaim all the power you once gave away. You stop wasting energy trying to be understood by people who don't even understand themselves. You stop trying to heal through endless conversations, because some wounds don't heal with words. They heal in silence. And yes, it's uncomfortable, because your silence will trigger people. It will confuse them. They'll start asking themselves, why isn't he reacting? Why didn't she respond? Did they stop caring? That's the moment the power shifts, because silence speaks a truth they cannot ignore. You don't owe them an explanation, not anymore. Now here's the second truth. When you stay silent, you start hearing the real truth louder. The world is loud. Everybody wants to talk, post, give advice, fill the void with noise. And in times of heartbreak, betrayal, or confusion, most people run to that noise. They call 5 friends. They scroll endlessly. They even chase the very person who hurt them, hoping for answers. But the Stoic takes a different path. He goes silent. Not because he doesn't feel pain, but because he knows real answers never come from noise. They come from reflection.
Marcus Aurelius put it best. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. When you go silent, the mind calms down. And when the mind calms down, the truth rises to the surface. Suddenly you begin to hear, they never respected me. I just didn't want to admit it. I'm not angry they left. I'm angry because I stayed too long. I don't need closure. I need peace. These truths won't arrive in a text message. They come in the quiet hours when you stop explaining and start listening to yourself. Silence separates emotions from values, because when you're hurt, your emotions scream, chase them, prove your worth, defend yourself. But when you're silent, your values whisper, hold your dignity, protect your peace, let them go. That's why Stoics didn't rush to react. They embrace what I call a sacred stillness, a pause before the storm. Modern society says speak your mind, clap back, don't let anyone disrespect you. But the Stoic path is different. You don't gain respect by shouting louder, you gain it by staying grounded while everyone else spins in noise. And here's the paradox: the quieter you are, the more people reveal themselves. You don't have to ask, do they care? Their actions will answer. You don't have to beg for clarity. The truth shows itself in your stillness. Most importantly, you stop reacting to life and you start responding with purpose. Silence is not passive, it's focused, it's intentional. It's the doorway to inner wisdom most people will never walk through. So the next time you're overwhelmed, confused, or drowning in emotions, don't act. Be still. The answer isn't out there, it's inside you, and you'll only hear it in silence. Now let's move to the third truth: begging for closure is a form of self-betrayal.
We all crave it, that final explanation, that one last honest conversation, the ending that feels complete. But here's the brutal reality: if someone truly cared, you wouldn't have to beg for closure. They would have given it to you out of respect. And if they didn't, then your silence is the closure. Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." That's exactly the point. When you stop chasing closure and start embodying your values, you stop handing control of your healing to the very person who hurt you. Because here's the cycle: 1, they hurt you. 2, you demand answers. 3, they respond with avoidance or coldness. 4, you feel even worse. And the cycle repeats until you realize closure isn't something they give you. It's something you give yourself when you finally choose silence and walk away. The pain you feel is real, but the moment you demand someone to explain why they hurt you, you hand over control of your healing.
Think about the cycle: first they hurt you, then you demand answers. They respond with coldness or avoidance. You feel even worse, and the cycle repeats until you realize closure isn't something they give you. It's something you give yourself the moment you go silent and walk away. It's easy to believe: if I just tell them how I feel, if I just explain my side, if I just get that one last conversation. But here's what really happens: you end up talking to someone who's already made peace with hurting you. You end up explaining yourself to someone who has already made their choice. You end up wasting your energy hoping someone else will repair your broken expectations. That's not closure. That's self-abandonment. The Stoics knew that emotions can cloud judgment, especially when the ego gets involved. You want to be seen as the good one. You want to be understood. You want them to finally get it. But chasing that is betraying your own growth.
Real closure is this: you accept that what they gave you was the most they could give. You accept that no amount of explanation will make them more respectful, more loving, or more honest. You stop waiting for a conversation that will never happen. And in that acceptance, your power returns. The people who hurt you don't need to understand your worth, you do. The people who left don't need to say goodbye, you can close that chapter without a word. The people who ghosted don't need another chance, your silence is already their answer. So stop writing those unsent letters. Stop rehearsing the perfect message. Stop chasing closure from people who were never open in the first place. Go silent and let your silence be the space where your self-respect finally breathes again. Silence exposes what words try so hard to hide. When you stop talking, masks fall off. Words can be beautiful, but they can also be deceptive. People say what sounds right. They say what they think you want to hear.
They use explanations, excuses, apologies. But silence cannot lie. Ralph Waldo Emerson once wrote, "What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say." The Stoics lived by this. They didn't judge people by their apologies. They judged them by their patterns. And the best way to see a pattern is to stop speaking and just watch. When you go silent, people reveal themselves. The one who respects you will miss your presence and reach out with honesty. The one who only used you will vanish because they never valued you to begin with. The one who manipulated you will grow angry or confused, not because you did something wrong, but because they lost control. Words can build illusions. Silence reveals reality. You don't need to confront them. You don't need to set traps or tests. Just step back. See who checks in when you're quiet. See who disappears when you stop giving. See who grows frustrated when they can't provoke a reaction. That's the truth.
And it's brutal, but it's necessary. Sometimes silence hurts more than 1,000 confrontations, because people can dismiss your words, but they can't dismiss your absence. They can argue with your opinions, but they can't argue with your stillness. When you stay quiet, you stop feeding their illusion. You stop playing their emotional games. You stop pretending their words matter more than their actions. And in that stillness, you gain clarity. You realize you don't need anyone to explain why they treated you badly. Their silence, their distance, their actions already gave you the answer. You begin to trust patterns over promises. You learn to believe energy over explanations. And you finally start valuing what's real, not what's spoken. That's Stoicism. Not cold but clear. Not distant but discerning. Not emotionless but emotionally disciplined. So the next time someone tries to talk their way back into your life, don't rush to answer. Just watch.
Let their actions do the talking. When you go silent and let the truth speak without words, something powerful begins to happen. Not explaining yourself is actually the highest form of confidence. Let's be real, when someone misunderstands you, it stings. You feel the urge to defend yourself, to prove you're not who they think you are, to say, "That's not me." But a Stoic doesn't chase understanding from others. He seeks it within himself. Because explaining yourself to people who've already made up their minds isn't confidence, it's fear of being misjudged. Marcus Aurelius warned us, don't waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbours unless it benefits both of you. Every time you try to convince someone of your worth, your goodness, or your loyalty, you're burning away your precious time and energy on someone else's judgment. That's not power, that's insecurity. The person who chooses silence isn't arrogant.
He's at peace because he knows his intentions are clean, his actions are aligned, and his value doesn't need to be translated to those unwilling to see it. And yes, this kind of detachment isn't easy. You may be called cold, you may be labelled selfish, you might even lose people you once thought were close. But losing people who never truly saw you isn't a loss, it's alignment. Here's the truth. Most people never admit many don't want to understand you. They want to control how you're perceived. And when your silence breaks their illusion, they grow angry not because you hurt them, but because you stopped playing their game. When you stop explaining, you start leading with energy. You stop justifying your distance. You stop defending your peace. You simply act. And those who belong in your life will understand your silence without needing subtitles. This kind of energy is rare. It unsettles people. It makes manipulators lose interest. It makes users drift away.
But the ones who remain, they respect you deeply because they know you won't lower your value just to fit into someone else's misunderstanding. That stoic silence, not loud, not desperate, not theatrical, just calm, grounded, unshakable. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing peace. You don't need to convince anyone that your boundary is valid. You don't have to shout your value in rooms where your silence has already said it all. And here's the next truth. Your detachment in silence is what delivers the greatest lesson. There's something uniquely powerful about someone who chooses to walk away, not in anger, not in drama, but in quiet detachment. You don't slam the door. You don't send that last emotional message. You simply leave. And in that silence, you teach a lesson no words ever could. Seneca said we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. The real suffering begins when the mind starts replaying silence, because when you stop responding, they're left alone with their guilt, their memory of how they treated you, and the echo of your absence. Your detachment says, I no longer need to prove myself to you. I won't remain where I am not respected. I've learned that peace is more valuable than connection. Most people don't know how to handle this kind of energy. They're used to others who react, who beg, who break down just to be heard. But when you go silent, you step out of that game. You exit with dignity, and your silence forces them to confront themselves. They expect you to chase, they expect you to fight, to argue, to return. But you don't, and that silence terrifies them far more than any argument ever could, because it means something they never expected. They no longer have access to your energy. They don't have the upper hand anymore. They never believed you would truly walk away. But the moment you do, that's when the real lesson begins.
Because people don't change when you scream, respect me. They don't learn from your words, they learn if they ever learn at all from your distance. They learn when your absence forces them to face what they've lost. And if they never change, that's okay too. Because the lesson wasn't for them, it was for you. You learn that your peace doesn't need permission. You learn that not everyone deserves an explanation. You learn that silence isn't just strength, it can also be healing. When you detach in silence, you free yourself from toxic patterns. You stop bleeding in front of people who can't understand your pain. You stop trying to explain storms to those who have only ever lived indoors. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care too much about your own soul to keep it trapped in a space where it's being neglected. That's why the Stoics weren't reactive. They didn't chase justice. They didn't beg for validation. They let silence speak for them.
You don't have to shout, "I'm done." You can simply be done. That is real power. And that is the kind of silence that terrifies the people who thought they had control over you. So don't be afraid to detach. Go quiet. Let them sit in the empty space where your voice used to be. And if you've made it this far, you can already feel it, a shift inside you, a quiet realization, a truth you've always known but maybe forgot you don't need to chase, beg, or explain yourself to be worthy. You don't have to be loud to be heard. You don't have to destroy your own peace just to keep someone else comfortable. This is the foundation of Stoicism. It's not about coldness, it's about clarity. It's not about detaching from love, it's about detaching from chaos. The Stoics taught us a timeless truth: silence is not weakness, silence is control. Silence is refusing to waste energy on what's beneath you. Silence is the confidence to know that your presence is valuable even when it's gone.
And yes, there will be moments when your emotions want to take over, when you'll feel the urge to explain, to fight, to prove. But in those moments, remember this: your silence may not win the argument, but it will win you back. Because every time you choose not to react, you build inner peace. Every time you walk away quietly, you build self-worth. Every time you protect your dignity, you build a kind of power that cannot be stolen. So if there's only one lesson you take away from this entire message, let it be this: let your silence be your final word. Not out of ego, not out of spite, but out of deep, unshakable self-respect. Thank you for watching Stoicism Breath. If this message touched you, hit like now. Share it with someone who's ready to grow. Comment your affirmation below, your voice matters here. And subscribe for more timeless Stoic truth every single week. Now I want you to write this in the comments: my silence is my last word, and my most powerful one.